Three, two, one. We are live. Smash Mouth Sports. We're back to the studio. Kind of. It's cut in half after 2 months of them working on it. It's actually worse than ever before. So we're going to have to get that figured out. I'm going to try not to harp too much on that and all the debauchery that's happened tonight. So we're 12 minutes late. Smash Mouth Sports. I'm your host, as always, Preston Bailey. With me, Cam Vieira. We're going to talk NBA playoffs. We're going to talk NBA injuries. We know the Lightning are playing tonight. We're going to give you updates on that as it comes in. But right now we're focused on basketball. Downtown Tampa, it was an insane debacle. People were smashing into each other. It was absolutely nuts. So, Cam, how are you?
I'm good, Preston. Good to be back. Good to see you back in the studio, and happy to get going.
Absolutely. We took a week off, but now we're back in better than ever. So let's get into the Lightning are playing right now. Any updates on that really quickly, Cam?
Not yet. I'm going to figure they're probably minutes away from dropping the puck. Probably going to be playing the Canadian and American national anthems any second now. Game should be getting underway soon.
I'll take that as a no. So you were supposed to say yes or no. Okay. We're just not on the same. But it's been okay. Let's focus on basketball. Who plays tonight?
Clippers Suns Game 6.
Clippers versus Suns. Where's the game at? Do you know?
This game is in LA.
Now the game is in LA. Paul George has played phenomenal in this series and this playoffs. He had one mishap with the free throws, but at the end of the day, he's played all world. The reason why they're in this series is because of Paul George. It's 3-2. Kawhi Leonard is officially out tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct. He is out.
He suffers from extreme lack of sacinitis.
Big time.
So he's out. You know what I'm going to do in a minute here? I'm going to bring up the scores here. Let's go around. Now, we've got the Clippers. We've got, of course, so Kawhi is out Game 6. Very possibly he doesn't trust the medical staff. So just give me your overall take on that.
Same situation that happened in San Antonio, right? He didn't trust the medical staff, and eventually he pushed his way out of there, and he was traded to the Raptors. He's a free agent at year's end, so we'll see what happens. I think that Kawhi Leonard is being more and more exposed as the modern NBA diva by the day, and they all are. And he is. People thought he was not one of them because he didn't carry himself with such an attitude, and he seemed kind of quiet. But he's revealing himself. It's the playoffs. Your team is in a must-win situation. It's clearly not a season-ending injury. Otherwise, they would have said you're out for the season. So they think you can play, and you're not playing. I mean, come on.
What is the injury? Tell us about the injury.
They just say it's a knee injury. They didn't specify what. They didn't say if it was a sprain, a fracture, or anything torn. It just says knee.
Let me tell you what I heard. What I heard was a knee bruise. That's what I heard.
Right, bone
knee
bruise.
Okay. If we all get a knee bruise, do we still got to go to work the next day?
We still go to work the next day, all of us.
Okay. Do we get $40 million a year?
No, we don't. He does.
This is the problem that the NBA is having right now. I understand they're at a high level. I understand these guys are getting millions of dollars. There's nothing wrong with taking a game or 2 or 3 off out of 82. This was a shortened season. I know LeBron a week ago posted all his comments about the NBA, about how all these extra games, and it wasn't extra games, it was 72 games. It was kind of crunched a little bit.
It was a short off season, right?
It was a short off season, but you could make an argument short off season, but most of the guys had a minimum of 2 months, right?
Yeah, it was 2 months. The Lakers and Heat, the team that played in the finals, had a 73-day off season, correct?
Okay, 73 days. So you're talking about 2.5 months off.
Correct.
I mean, how much time off do you need, really?
All I know, so the equivalent would be if the season was starting tonight, the last season would have ended in mid-April. So that's how much time they had off. So just figure like right around the NFL draft. So yeah, it's just it's just these NBA players, and this was predictable. It was a short season. It was a short and crammed season off of a short off season, off of the craziest year, obviously, in league history due to the pandemic. But it's a shame.
You're saying last year, not this year.
Right.
Last year was the craziest year. You're not saying this year, are you?
No, last year was the craziest year, obviously.
Right.
This season's been the most crammed year, is what I said.
Most crammed. Okay. Yeah. You can say crammed. I mean, look, Charles Barkley said this. In the 80s and 90s, they didn't have $1 billion private planes. They played back to back all the time. They played 40 minutes a night plus. They played all 82 games. There was no load management. That was not even a term back then.
No.
If you even suggested load management, Michael Jordan would punch you in the face. Okay?
Correct.
So much less your head coach and everything else. And by the way, we're going to get, just because this came up here, and I'm seeing this on Twitter, I do want to address, before we get back to the playoffs, because we're going to talk about the playoffs and the injuries, but I want to get into Scottie Pippen's comments.
Oh, okay.
Number one, I agree with Reggie Miller. I agree with Shaq. I agree with Michael Jordan. Phil Jackson's not racist, okay?
No.
The problem that, by the way, I don't know if you saw that interview, but Scottie Pippen.
Well, I know what he said. He said it was racist that Phil Jackson drew up the last shot for Tony Kukoc and not him.
Okay, yeah, but what I'm getting at is Scottie Pippen looked high in that interview. He looked high. His hair was shot out. His eyes were bug out. He's clearly running out of money. To me, when I see Scottie, I see a guy that was once on top. And Cowherd did a fantastic show yesterday, Batman and Robin. And I don't have the whole list in front of me. I'm just going off memory. Scottie Pippen barely made his top 10 of Robins, even though many people consider Scottie Pippen the greatest Robin of all time. We'll get into that. But what I want to get into is his problem. So he called Phil Jackson racist because Tony Kukoc was white and Scottie Pippen is black.
Correct.
That's absurd. I said this weeks ago. I said this months ago. Yes, Scottie Pippen's a better player than Tony Kukoc. Nobody would make that argument. But Tony Kukoc is a better shooter and a better three-point shooter than Scottie Pippen. And you know the worst part about this, which makes Scottie Pippen look the worst?
What's that?
Tony Kukoc made the shot.
Exactly.
He made the shot. He won the playoff game. That's the worst part for Scottie. Scottie can play his little what-if calculations all he wants to. But Tony Kukoc made the shot, so Phil Jackson was right. Phil Jackson's instinct was right.
And we saw it during the Last Dance, and that really sat poorly with the locker room there because Pippen thought he was going to have his moment. Jordan was gone. It was in the middle of Jordan's first retirement. They were in the playoffs. They thought, here is my moment. I'm no longer in Michael's shadow. And he drew up the play for Kukoc, and that obviously really PO'd him. But oh well, it's part of the deal. Kukoc was a better shooter.
Look, let me say this, Cam, before you finish. Let me just say this. Okay, I get it. I said at the time, I said, before Scottie Pippen said what he said yesterday, I said the number one reason he was upset, number one, he is a baby, but also
we saw that during the Last Dance.
Because we saw that during the Last Dance. He actually came across, honestly, much, much worse.
He did.
He was shielded a lot from the media by Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was the shield to protect Scottie.
Correct.
Because Scottie came across looking horrible. But let me just address this. So the point being is this. Scottie Pippen is a great Robin. But the problem that Scottie has is it's sour grapes. I understand he played the tough defense. He always played the toughest defender. He's a great player. Scottie Pippen's an all-world player. Scottie Pippen's an all-time top 30, top 40 player. No doubt about it. Scottie Pippen is great, and he's an all-NBA top 50 officially. But having said that, he wasn't a great pure shooter like Tony Kukoc or some of the other guys. And the point that he is missing, and a lot of people are missing, it's got nothing to do with the race. It's ridiculous. Scottie Pippen is coming off looking sour. He talked about his back. Okay, we're talking about we're going back to the Last Dance. So the Last Dance looked bad about his back and his knee and his leg and his contract.
Migraine, right?
Migraine. All these problems.
Every year there was something. It felt
every year there was something with Scottie Pippen. I understand Scottie Pippen wanted to be the Michael Jordan. He wanted the chance to be the leader. But Scottie Pippen's not a leader. He's not a leader. What are your thoughts on that, Cam?
No, you're right. And as we said, I mean, it even came out when the Last Dance was over that he was upset with the way, because Jordan had final editing say on that thing, that he was upset with the way Michael portrayed him. But Michael portrayed him honestly. So, I mean,
it was accurate to me. I mean, to be honest, Michael Jordan said, he had this footage for 20-some years. Michael Jordan said he was afraid how he would be portrayed. I thought Michael Jordan was portrayed phenomenal to me.
Hey, he was what we thought he was. He was a competitive guy who got his teammates to, called them up, make sure they were practicing at 6 a.m., running miles.
We all knew about the intensity with Jordan. We all knew he punched Steve Kerr. We knew those stories, the big stories. But what we didn't know, we did not know how much he babied Scottie Pippen.
Correct.
And how much he was actually very positive toward. Everyone's like, oh, Jordan's so tough. Well, he is tough, but he also encouraged Scottie Pippen. Come on, Scottie, you can do this, to push him through the workouts. Dennis Rodman, he flew to Las Vegas to pick up Dennis Rodman and take him back. That's another level that before this, nobody talked about Michael Jordan. Everybody's like, oh, Michael Jordan's a bad teammate. No, he most certainly was not a bad teammate. Michael Jordan was a phenomenal teammate. And you know what else I'm glad they showed? Michael Jordan apologized to Steve Kerr. He apologized to Steve Kerr. That
Correct.
is going to happen in a competitive situation. Things are hostile. Things get competitive. Things go off the rails. So he absolutely apologized to Steve Kerr. And he passed it to Steve Kerr. He passed it to John Paxson. Those guys made the final shot. I do not remember in any of those clinching NBA Finals games, please correct me, Scottie Pippen making a key shot in the final 20 to 30 seconds.
Nope. His biggest play was probably saving that inbound pass to Kukoc when they won their 5th of 6 championships. That's probably the biggest play he made.
You mean the steal? He makes the steal and the kind of the shuffleboard kind of a pass?
To Kukoc, yep.
And Kukoc gets the dunk. Right. But again, Kukoc, yes, he wasn't the player that Scottie was, but I just think Scottie Pippen is clearly out of money to me. He's clearly bitter. He's clearly sour. Okay, this is probably why his wife divorced him. You want a hot take? This is probably why his wife divorced him. Okay,
probably.
Because of his, and you know, the one story I do remember many, many years ago, when I was a kid, towards the end of Scottie Pippen's career, and I thought it was extremely bizarre. This is way before Uber and Lyft. Scottie Pippen, who had a $95,000 Mercedes at the time, it was, broadcast that he needed to get work done, and he rented a car, and they gave him like a Ford Taurus, some kind of low-level, mid-level car. And I remember him doing the whole interview. He complained about, I've got a $100,000 car, and you're going to give me this crappy Ford Taurus. I remember him saying, and I thought, geez, Scotty, you just sound like, and this was 20 years ago. I'm like, dude, you just sound really, like, it's one thing to feel that inside. Oh, I got a $100,000 car. You're going to give me this, mid-sized sedan. Don't broadcast it to the media and he just sounds so ungrateful. And he was a terrible negotiator with business. Honestly, Scottie Pippen, the basketball player, phenomenal. Scottie Pippen, the person, terrible.
What was the stat in the Last Dance? He had like the 56th highest paid player in the league. Well, that's his fault.
Yes, that's his fault. In fact, the owner said, don't do it.
Correct. Jerry Reinsdorf told him not to sign the deal.
Was insistent on doing it because he wanted that long-term deal because Scottie Pippen did not have – he's like, oh, my family and how I grew up poor. Look, dude, I get it. You grew up poor. Everybody wants, guaranteed $15, $20 million. But at that time, the salaries were just starting to spike up in the mid-'90s at that time.
Because of Jordan's influence, right.
Because of Jordan's influence. It was after the Dream Team in 92. The salaries were starting to go because – at that point, before that point, the NBA in the 80s was on tape delay. No joke.
No, I know.
It was on tape delay. So there was no Twitter and YouTube and all this other great stuff.
Bird and Magic came along and saved it, then Jordan took it to the next level.
Bird and Magic kind of got it, got him off tape delay and got it, a little bit of a ratings. But when Jordan came, Jordan and all those guys, they took it to the next
global.
Level.
Right.
It became a global game, 100%. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, I just think Scottie is just desperate to stay in the news because Michael Jordan owns a team. Phil Jackson, people still ask him for comments every here and there. And every offseason, there's rumors he's going to come back and join the front office. So he's really the only member of that organization that's really irrelevant. He's not involved in the game in many ways. So when he has a chance to make a statement, he does it. And I think it's unfortunate that this is the path he chose.
Right.
It was Tony Kukoc was a better shooter than him, and that's why he took the shot. I mean, is Ray Allen a better player than LeBron? Ray Allen took the shot.
No,
exactly.
Absolutely not. And guess what? Who was the guy? Mike Miller, when he made his 7 or 8 3. He's not better than LeBron, but he had a great game where he made 7 or 8 threes in NBA Finals. Great. That's part of the game.
Kyrie's not better than LeBron either, but Kyrie took the shot.
Scottie Pippen has got to smarten up. Scottie Pippen's got to smarten up. Scottie Pippen is this last year, I've lost so much respect for Scottie Pippen, and I thought Scottie Pippen was great. But the bad boys, the migraines, the complaining, when Dennis Ramos from Detroit pushed him in the stands, how Scottie Pippen acted like a baby. Right?
I mean, we saw it during the Last Dance. Every year they were in the playoffs, it was an injury or a sickness or a headache. That something was ailing Scottie every year.
Every time. Yep.
And look at as we come to find out, Jordan was poisoned by pizza, as we come to find out in the flu game, and he played through it. Had one of the best games of his career.
Correct. And and I want to get back to where we were at. So here we are with the Clippers. Okay, so to put things in perspective, Paul George, who I give Paul George a lot of credit, he plays 41 minutes a night. This is his playoff average, 41 minutes a night, 27.5 points a game, almost 10 boards a game, 5 assists a game, 1 steal per game and about half of a block a game. Played absolutely phenomenal.
Correct.
So to put things in perspective, Kawhi has less rebounds, 7.5, less assists, 4.5, and they're about the same in blocks, and he's got about 3 more points. But he plays 2 minutes less a night, and he's only played 11 games. Is it really fair for Paul George to play 18 games and Kawhi only plays 7? You're basically talking about that's almost half. That's 50%. In fact, the Clippers will be playing in about 30 minutes. That will be 19 games. That will be almost 2-1 at that point.
Paul George is putting the Clippers on his back. And he's
putting the Clippers on his back.
He's redeeming himself because he knows he got a lot of crap for how he played in the playoffs last year down in the bubble. Everyone was calling him Pandemic P and how poorly he played in that Nuggets series. He remembers that, and he's redeeming himself. And I think he's doing a great job.
And Paul George is a great player, and I'm going to go through this really quickly with the Clippers and then with the Suns, and then I'm going to circle back to the best Robins of all time. And then you've got Reggie Jackson, who's played very well, 18.5 points. You've got Marcus Morris, who's played all right, played solid for him, 11.5. That's really about his ceiling. Batum at 8. Terrence Mann's had a couple good games, but overall still averaging 7.5 points. So without a doubt, it's been Paul George.
Cousins, right, yep.
Right. Well, I mean, Marcus Cousins has played 6 games.
Right.
Like DeMarcus Cousins has played well at times. He's averaging 6.5 points, and he's averaging where are the rebounds here? Only 2.5 boards per game. Not that great. Zubac is another guy that's actually played well in part-time duty, and he's also injured as well.
Correct. And
so
to your point,
2 of the 5 starters. And if you wanted to add DeMarcus Cousins, that would be a 3 or a bubble 6 man like a DeMarcus Cousins. And Paul George has been carrying this team with a bunch of role players.
Correct. And to your point about the injuries, you want the list of the All-Stars that have missed time in the postseason?
We're gonna get to that list, but before we do, Cam, I know you're chomping at the bit. Take it easy. Okay, you're chomping at that bit. You and your Celtics, take it easy. I want to get to the Phoenix Suns really quickly. So Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker has played 15 games. Chris Paul's only missed 2 games, and that's not his fault. That's because of COVID. So you got 27.5 from Booker, 16 from Paul, 16 from Ayton, 11 from Mikal Bridges, and then Cameron Payne adding 10 and some change. And then, of course, DeAndre Ayton, 11 rebounds. Devin Booker is playing out of his mind. So that's kind of the breakdown.
Stephen A. said he reminds him of a young Kobe Bryant. So there we go.
Who does? Devin Booker?
Yep.
I would. That's a pretty good comparison. I would agree with that. How old is Devin Booker? 22, 23?
He's 24 or 25. He was drafted 6 years ago, so 25, I want to say.
Probably 25. So, yeah, and I'm looking at it real quickly before we get – I wanted to break those Clippers down. So we broke down the Clippers. We broke down the Suns, their stats. Right now, the game starts at 9 o'clock in 30 minutes. It's at the Staples Center in L.A. Phoenix is a 1.5-point favorite on the road.
Correct.
What do you think of that? Now, you're not surprised?
I'm not surprised. Phoenix has been the better team throughout this series. I know they had a rough game the other night. But as long as Booker and Ayton are on, I don't see any way. I mean, Paul George is playing phenomenal. But at the end of the day, he can't do it alone.
I would agree. I do expect the Phoenix Suns to win tonight as well. And here's what I say. We'll get to the injuries. But the fact that Kawhi Leonard, in my opinion, he gave up. And it's not one time.
Just like he did to San Antonio.
Right. He's done it multiple times. Look, Kawhi Leonard is great. But if I put Kawhi Leonard on the LA Lakers, okay. Oh, and you're like, whoa. Like if next year Kawhi Leonard goes to the LA Lakers.
Which I think is a possibility.
Which you're saying that's a possibility. I'm skeptical, but you could be right about that. But let's do this. And he wins the NBA Finals MVP, and he plays 48 games. And everyone's like, well, look how great Kawhi played in the NBA Finals. Yes! He's got LeBron. He's got Kuzma. He's got Anthony Davis. He's got all these. He doesn't have the pressure. The point I'm saying about Kawhi Leonard is a number 2 that people treat him like he's a number 1. And when I mean he's a number 2, when he was teaming with the Tim, and I said this to you before, we've had many heated debates about this. When he won his first MVP with San Antonio, everybody was within the same range.
Correct.
All of those starters, they were all between 16 and 18.5, 19 points, every one of them. Okay, so
Sure.
it's not like Paul George is averaging close to 30, Devin Booker's averaging close to no. All of those guys were basically in the same cake. They were in the same range, right?
Absolutely.
That's what we're talking about.
And the same thing in Toronto. He was with Gasol and Lowry and all those guys up there. You're 100% right.
Let's get to the injuries.
The injuries. So this
Before
is
you
where,
get to the injuries, like and subscribe to this channel.
yes.
Just go ahead. Because it's going to be a
So-
long video. So we're already over 20 minutes, but that's fine.
So here are the All-Stars. A notable
I
player-
got to get my money out of the $20 in parking that I paid. And I normally get it for free, but go ahead.
So here are the All-Stars, notable players that have missed time for, in the playoffs this year. James Harden,
Okay, let me. I'm going to write this down. So let's. Okay, and I want to circle back. Okay, so James Harden,
Kyrie Irving,
Kyrie, right?
Anthony Davis,
Okay,
Kawhi Leonard,
okay. I was going to try to do it by team, but keep going. Okay,
Joel Embiid.
how many games did Embiid miss?
It was either 2 or 3.
Okay, we'll give him 2. Okay,
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul, not because of injury, his of
It
COVID.
was because of COVID. This is just a list of All-Stars / notable players that have missed time this
understand.
postseason.
Okay,
Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell missed games
Yes, he did.
in the playoffs.
Yes, he did.
How many games? Maybe just one.
2 or 3.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Mike Conley,
Okay.
Jaylen Brown,
Okay.
Trey Young, who missed last night,
Yep.
and he isn't an All-Star, but obviously this is a significant injury. Jamal Murray missed the playoffs for Denver.
Okay.
And now Giannis is doubtful for tomorrow night.
Okay. Now that obviously that is an all-star team in itself. That's a stack. That's an Olympic team.
Yes,
that whole
absolutely.
roster is an Olympic team. Now let me ask you this question. I'm just gonna. So, have I not said Trey Young is great, but Trey Young is small and frail?
Yes, absolutely.
I also said the night before when he had his first game one, when he had his 48 points and he went off the charts. I said if this game was played in the 80s or 90s, they would have beat the hell out of him the next game.
Correct.
And they did beat the hell out of him the next game. He only got 15 points. He had 8 turnovers. He played terrible. And then the last game they played, they beat him. So they whipped him. Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown has been pretty sturdy for the most part. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
But he's also a little flaky. He's got some personality problems. Joel Embiid has always been injured. Always.
Correct.
Joel Embiid has a brittle body. Kawhi Leonard has a brittle body and is always injured. Kyrie Irving, always injured.
Correct.
Anthony Davis, great athlete, also a brittle body. He also came in very out of shape before this season.
Yes, he did.
And Chris Paul is aging. He has had a couple injury problems, but the COVID, I'm not going to kill him for COVID. Donovan Mitchell, that could be an isolated incident. Mike Conley's getting older. So, it could. Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown looks to be the two guys that have been sturdy so far.
Correct.
But with all due respect, your Celtics weren't going anywhere, even with
I agree.
Jaylen Brown. Okay, so we're crossing that out as far as obviously Trey Young getting injured is a significant injury, but he's very similar to Steph Curry in positive and in negative ways. He's positive, he's great, he's dynamic, he checked great shoot, he can get 40 points.
Weak
all
ankles.
All weak ankles. When teams play physical, when they rush 2 or 3 guys at him and they focus on Trey Young, much like Steph Curry. Not saying you can shut him down, but you can contain him and you can rough him up for stretches. That is the point. That is the difference versus a guy like a Shaq, a Tim Duncan, or an Embiid if he was healthy. Now,
Correct.
James Harden is a guy that you could say he's been pretty durable, right?
Correct.
Did James Harden did we not do videos about James Harden being out of shape?
Yeah, and that's 100% what caused the injury. His
James
condition
Harden-
caused the injury.
Came into this season out of shape, acting like a baby. Anthony Davis came into this season fat and out of shape, acting like a baby. And Kyrie Irving, he's always in good shape, but he still acts like a baby.
All the time.
And Joel Embiid is also in that out of shape baby category. All of these guys, and yes, you forgot to mention the most important guy, LeBron James got injured.
Correct.
Now I know he didn't make actually they did make the playoffs. Why didn't you mention LeBron James? You just
No,
forgot
they
about him?
did, he didn't miss any. Those are only guys who missed playoff games, not regular
Playoff
season
games. But yeah, he was injured as well.
Correct. The ankle. Correct.
And LeBron James is on the wrong side of 36. He's great. He's an all-time great. Nobody's disputing that. No one's saying that
But
he
we
isn't.
might be seeing the beginning of the end.
Well, yeah, we are seeing the beginning of the end. I mean, the days of LeBron getting 35-point triple-doubles are slim to none.
Of course.
he's going to have to hope a Kawhi Leonard, a James. I tell you, a guy that would be perfect for LeBron James would be James Harden.
100%.
Because James Harden is a shooter, and James Harden's a guy who likes to drive and likes to penetrate. And with that group of guys, Davis, James, and Harden, that would be a dynamic trio by far. What are your thoughts on that?
Of course, absolutely. That'd be that'd be a dynamic trio. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the best big three LeBron's ever had, but it could be.
It could be.
I think probably Wade and Bosh are probably better, but it's better than Love and Kyrie, in my opinion.
I know. I think Anthony Davis is better than Bosh.
No, of course.
And I think James Harden is
Dwayne Wade's better.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. You hate James Harden.
Well, I'm just factoring in is James Harden a better scorer? Yes, of course, but I think Dwayne Wade's a better defender. I think Dwayne Wade's a better passer, and I think
Dwayne Wade is a bet. Well, let's go to the tail of the tape. James Harden is a better passer than Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade's a better defender. But let's do this. Let's do a quick land of basketball between the two. Dwayne Wade is a great player, and I love Dwayne Wade. I think
Dwayne Wade's probably the third best shooting guard of all time.
Right. Well, James Harden could be the third best shooting guard of all time.
Correct.
So let's take a look here. Land of basketball. So, but you're also not a fan of James Harden. You don't.
I'm not, but he's a great player. I don't dispute his talent. His talent's off the charts. I'm not a fan of the guy. I never have been.
Right.
But his talent is through the roof, and I give him credit for gutting it out in that playoff series and trying to play through the injury as opposed to Kyrie.
All right. Let's take a look. James Harden. Go ahead and finish saying what you were saying while I bring this up with Dwayne Wade here.
I just think that, I mean, you can make a case either way about who.
How do you not think James Harden would have played phenomenal with Shaq?
Oh, of course. Of course.
And this may sound like an odd thing to say, but let me say this too. If James Harden would have played with LeBron, James Harden would have had no problem taking 32 shots a game. When LeBron was not really shooting in that first time, and also James Harden would have played great with Shaq with Miami because he would have drive to the basket, shot a lot. James Harden's a great player. I know people. He's a little out of shape, and James Harden is one of the top 5 scorers of all time in the NBA. All time.
I don't dispute that.
He
absolutely is.
Top 5.
Absolutely.
And honestly, he might even be top 3.
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go. James Harden, season MVPs. 1 for James Harden, that is. 0 for Dwayne Wade.
Correct.
All right. So let's go to the big numbers. You ready?
Yep.
Points per game. James Harden, 25.1, more than Dwayne Wade's 22.0. What are your thoughts there?
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Okay, you said Dwayne Wade's a better rebounder.
I might be wrong statistically wise. I'm just going by what my eyes.
I know you're going by how you feel. I'm going to go by what the actual stats say. James Harden is at 5.5 rebounds, which is better than Dwayne Wade's 4.7. So far, James Harden's a better scorer. James Harden's a better rebounder. Let's go to passing. James Harden, 6.5 assists per game versus Dwayne Wade's 5.5.
Okay.
So the 3 biggest stats, points, assists, rebounds, James. And when I say James, I mean James Harden. Steals. Dwayne Wade's known as a great defender, correct?
Yes.
1.6 steals per game, which is more than 1.5 for Dwayne Wade. It's close. Again, the edge goes to James Harden.
How many All-NBA teams?
And that doesn't matter. We'll get to that. But you're grasping for straws. And the last stat, which is blocks, Dwayne Wade is known for being a great blocker. He's at 0.8. James Harden's at 0.5. Again, Dwayne Wade has a slight edge, but it's pretty close. And not to mention, James Harden is a phenomenal three-point shooter. He beats him in threes. He also beats him in free throws. And he beats him in playoff averages as well. So, I mean, you got the 3 NBA titles, which is big, but let's
with
see.
Shaq and LeBron, you're right.
Okay, hold on. So you said all NBAs, right?
Mm-hmm.
8-7. Dwayne Wade's got 1 more. 8-7.
Okay, and he did that playing against Kobe at the same position. How about all defense?
Okay, but I'm answering your question. 8-7, and James Harden's going to have more than 8 because he's probably going to get 2 more. All NBA first teams. James was 6, Dwayne Wade with 2. So by every metrics, James Harden also is a 3-time leading scorer, and James Harden also is the assist leader.
Correct.
So that's not even close. As great as Dwayne Wade is, James Harden is better in every metrics.
Correct.
You may feel a certain way about Dwayne Wade, but James Harden is bigger, 6'5.5", stockier guy. James Harden is an elite shooter.
James Harden, he's an all-world talent. Never disputed that. All-world talent.
You just don't like him.
I don't like him. I'm not afraid to admit that. But he is an all-world player. But I guarantee you, if you and I did Jay Leno's old bit jaywalking, we went to people in the streets of our hometown and asked them would they rather have James Harden or Dwayne Wade. Most of them would say Dwayne Wade.
Okay, well, we can do the jaywalking segment, but most people are wrong. I just brought you the stats. You even by your own logic, I said let's go by the stats because I knew the stats. I knew the range of the stats. I knew James Harden is a triple-double machine. He is all-time high in everything. You're not going to find many guys that are going to beat James Harden in scoring, assists, and rebounds.
No, you're right. And sometimes the stats are mind-blowing. Like I remember the first time
you'll find a guy like a Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell. Yeah, of course those guys are better rebounders than James Harden, but they're not better passers and they're not better scorers.
Of course. And there are sometimes the stats are mind-blowing. Like when you told me for the first time that LeBron James has a better three-point percentage than Kobe, I was stunned.
Right, and I knew you were stunned because it's about doing the research, and I like doing the research.
Correct.
So that's the point with James Harden. I'm just saying Dwayne Wade is great, but Dwayne Wade was also 6'4". He broke down a little bit at times. I'm saying trade Dwayne Wade for James Harden. If James Harden was in the same spot,
Miami still wins 3 championships.
Miami still wins 3 championships.
Because he could have played with Shaq and he could have played with LeBron.
James Harden would have been phenomenal. And the fact that he gets so many – here's another thing that people are missing. Dwayne Wade and Kobe were great players, but they were also great players because they got an extra 4 or 5 points a game, 6 points a game, because Shaq was getting fouled so much.
Correct.
With the amount of times with Shaq going the free throw line and James Harden going the free throw line, this team would be bonus points 6 minutes, 5-6 minutes in every quarter. They would be blowing out teams by 15 points just because of free throws.
Correct.
So that's my point on that. The last thing I want to bring up. So, by the way, regarding these injuries, and Cowherd broke this down, and I agree with Colin Cowherd 100% on this. The final 4 teams, the Clippers and Suns, right? You with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
The Clippers and Suns, they're both 2 very good teams. Is there any shock that they're there? I mean, you could say maybe Atlanta, maybe you're a little shocked. Maybe you're shocked in Atlanta, maybe you're a little shocked Phoenix, but last year Phoenix was undefeated in the bubble.
Correct.
They had signs of life last year, and they added Chris Paul.
I am a little shocked at Atlanta, but that's probably just more because of the injuries.
Atlanta is more because of injuries.
Correct. And look, Trae Young is phenomenal.
Trae Young is phenomenal. Their other guard is phenomenal. Heinrich or whatever his name is.
If you go over the balance of the last 3 years, Giannis has been the best player in the league, and he's still here. So,
right now the Giannis injury, and I'm glad you brought that up. We're going to get into that with Milwaukee, but with the exception of Atlanta, because that is a little bit of a surprise or a little bit of a Cinderella story, if you will.
Correct.
And part of that, no doubt about it, not part of it, the injuries to Boston, the injuries to Brooklyn, that definitely negatively impacted those 2 teams and obviously helped Atlanta, no doubt about it. But having said that, Atlanta is also a young and hungry, aggressive team.
They are. They 100% are.
Brooklyn is an old team. They're great, but they're old.
100%.
Okay, let's bring up Milwaukee, and then we'll save Atlanta for the end, right?
Yep.
I do hate that Milwaukee. I do hate that he got injured. Giannis got injured. I think that kind of kills. It could kill Milwaukee.
It could. It absolutely could.
I mean, I hope it doesn't, but
he's doubtful for tomorrow night. But the good news is there's no structural damage, so it's nothing like a torn ACL or anything.
Right. Okay. Here we go. They've each played 15 games. Giannis has played 37.5 minutes a night. Ironically, Chris Middleton has played almost 39 minutes a night. Giannis, 28 points, 12.5 boards, 5 assists a game, almost a steal, almost a block a game. That's phenomenal.
Correct.
And you and a lot of other people get so bent out of shape about his this and that and the other. He's shooting 55% from the floor.
Great. Phenomenal.
And Chris Middleton's played phenomenal. Chris Middleton is Absolutely unbelievable, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Am I coming through? Are you freezing or am I freezing or what's going on?
No. You sound fine.
Okay, looks like a little bit of freeze, no?
No.
Okay, good. Now, last thing we'll say.
It did start to pour up here in Boston, so that's might be what's going on.
That's probably why. But last thing we're going to cover is, we've had a good show so far, is what's the last team? Atlanta, right?
Correct.
Let's go over Atlanta. But again, all these things that I mentioned so far, yes, there's been a lot of injuries. Injuries are part of the game.
It's going to happen.
When the Golden State Warriors won their first NBA title, and I mean first, I mean with
right,
Steph.
The first one without Durant, right.
Kevin Love was injured.
And Kyrie was injured. Correct.
And the role players were not really playing that great. So you could say the greatest show on turf, great blah, 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 all that.
The second best team on that Cavs team was Dellavedova by that point.
And then when LeBron won, remind me, Draymond Green had his problem. And who was
suspended,
injured?
right.
Right, he got suspended. So that changed the balance of power there, right?
And when the Raptors beat Golden State, Durant was out, Thompson was out, and Curry was on one leg.
Exactly. So for people that say, well, what if? No, it's not about what if this and what if that. Injuries are part of the game. It sucks, but it's part of the game. Correct? All right. Let's bring this up here, then we'll wrap this up. Trae Young's averaging almost 30 points per game. His second best guy is 13.5, John Collins. But here is what people are missing about Atlanta. Let me show you why. 30 by Trae Young, right?
Yep.
Collins at 13.5. Bogdan at 13. How do you say his name? Gallinari.
Danilo Gallinari. Yep.
Danilo. Danilo, 12.5. Kevin Huerter, 11.5. Cam Reddish, 11.5. DeAndre Hunter at 11. Clint Capella, 7. And Lou Williams coming off the bench for limited minutes at 7.5. They've got a lot of scorers. Atlanta has got a lot. I mean, just look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They've got 8 guys in double digits. No team has half of that.
Correct.
Half. No, that's 100%. Why Atlanta is moving forward. Because up until Trae Young got injured, this team was clean. This team was healthy, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's what we're talking about.
It's true, 100%.
Like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. We're probably going to have former NBA 76er Matt Geiger on next week, center. We look forward to that. Absolutely. That'll be exciting. We'll get his opinion on the NBA Finals. So as of right now, it does look like it's going to be Milwaukee and Phoenix in the NBA Finals. Do you agree or do you disagree? And tell me why.
I agree, and I think that's going to be a great series. Giannis versus Booker. I think that's going to be phenomenal. I can't wait to see it if it happens.
It will be a great series. If Milwaukee is able to beat Atlanta, which they should, because I know Giannis is banged up, but Trae Young is really the guy that stirs that drink for that team. Right?
Correct. Yep, absolutely.
He's the guy that stirs things. So
nobody else in Atlanta can do what Chris Middleton does. Never mind Giannis.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, it's phenomenal. It's been a good play. Honestly, it's been a good playoffs. I know a lot of guys,
because it's been open. It's not just LeBron and Durant and Curry in your face every year like it's been. It's been open.
Look, I know these are all small market teams, obviously besides LA, but I love Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a small market team. Atlanta's a big market, but they're still a small market as far as NBA. As far as NBA folklore and NBA historically.
Correct. They're not the Lakers or the Celtics.
The Hawks have not been there continuous. They had a good run a couple years back with Kyle Korver and some of the other guys, and then many years ago with Dominique and Spud Webb, they had a run. So that's interesting. I love seeing what the Phoenix Suns are doing. Phoenix is a small market. I love seeing what the Phoenix Suns are doing. I love it.
Draft and develop.
And totally unrelated, but a year ago with DeAndre Ayton, on NBA 2K, the guy's phenomenal. With Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, absolutely phenomenal. Are you looking something up, or are you done there?
I'm just keeping my eyes on the Lightning game for you. So far, we're scoreless.
We're scoreless. Is there I'm glad you brought that up. Like and subscribe. Before we wrap this up, scoreless, how much time is left in the first period?
3 minutes and 25 seconds.
Okay. So 3:25 in Tampa, 0-0. That's probably why it's been quiet in the background, because I expect people to be going pandemonium. So thanks again. Like and subscribe. See ya.
See ya.